Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Garry Burgess. I'm the development manager for Business Analyst. I usually talk in front of a computer screen, so bear with me if I seem a bit nervous. Usually, I guess a nervous speaker, I imagine that the audience was naked. I'm imagining that you guys are computer screens. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit of a story about the country of my birth, Scotland. I was born in the North Highlands, and so I want you to imagine there's a lonely shepherd going about his day. He's tending to his flock of sheep. You know, just have a peaceful day. It's actually not raining, so it's a pretty good day in Scotland. And, you know, off in the distance, this dust cloud starts to approach. And out of this dust cloud emerges a brand new shiny SUV. And the door that pulls up next to the shepherd, and a young man dressed in a shirt and tie, looked a lot probably like me, bounds out, introduces himself, and says to the shepherd, you know, I've got a deal for you. I've written this amazing computer program that could predict how many sheep are on a farm, and I want to test it out on your farm today. If I could predict how many sheep are on this farm, will you give me one of your sheep? The shepherd thinks, well, you know, I live in a remote village in Scotland. This is very unusual. Sure, why not? I'll give it a whirl. So the young man pulls out his computer and starts processing a whole bunch of things. He opens up ArcMap. He opens up a geoprocessing model. He starts explaining to the shepherd that his model's written in Python and would be 4 times faster if he was running on his server. And you know, lo and behold, his computer beeps after about 3 or 4 minutes, and he pulls out a printer and publishes this beautiful-looking report and hands it to the shepherd and says, my model predicted that there are 1,257 sheep on the farm. And the shepherd goes, well, congratulations, you nailed it. I guess you can take one of my sheep. So the young man starts to pack up. He loads up one of the animals on the back of the truck, and he's just about to leave, and the shepherd asks him, so how long have you been a GIS consultant for? And the young man's amazed. He's like, how does this shepherd in the remote village in Scotland know that I'm a consultant? And he says, well, there's 3 reasons. Number 1, you came here uninvited. Okay. Number 2, you just charged me for information that I already knew. All right. And lastly, you could start by taking my dog out of your truck. All right. So, all right. So what in the heck does that have to do with Business Analyst? So as really, you know, I think back to this great presentation from the gentleman at Cirque du Soleil yesterday, and he talked about having these kind of pillars that you run your business on. And, you know, there are 2 principles that I work with in my development team. I never really thought of them as pillars, but I guess that's what we call them. So the first one is, tell me something that I don't already know. All right? How many people here have played the role of that shepherd in a boardroom before where they've had someone, you know, tell them something that was completely obvious? You know, I'll tell you an interesting story about several years ago. We were doing some analysis for a luxury car manufacturer, and we just hired a new analyst. So he received a snapshot of the data from this luxury car manufacturer, and they were testing a new car in their market. And, you know, he went away for 3 days, and he came back and presented a report to me saying that the people that buy these cars have a lot of money. And it's like, well, that's like, you know, that was like, oh, it clearly did not pass the tell me something I didn't know test. So, you know, we worked with that analyst and said, you know, we need to dig much deeper than that. What are the things that are interesting about this? So we worked with the manufacturer, and they said, well, this car was geared mainly for people that, you know, are young and sporty. They like to golf and they like to ski. So we tested that data, and we found out that they were penetrating the heck out of the golfers. But boy, they were doing really poorly with the skiers. So they looked at their marketing campaign. They adjusted how they were doing that. They ended up partnering with some roof rack people to doing something. And, you know, in 2 or 3 years, the lift off of the adjustment, that marketing campaign really had a tremendous effect on how they do business. You know, the second principle that I talk to my team about is that, you know, we need to become domain experts. And I think one of the most challenging aspects for me developing software for the commercial marketplace is there's such a breadth of different types of industries out there. Everybody's different, and the only way that we can become domain experts is by engaging with you. So how many people here saw the demo I did yesterday of those graphic reports? Right? You saw those were pretty cool. So that piece of functionality, that new capability came from customer engagement at last year's Business Summit. I talked with several customers, and they showed me what they were doing with our demographic reports. Almost all of them were pumping the data out into things like PowerPoint and Excel, or handing them to graphic designers, and then they were spending, in some cases, weeks making these reports look beautiful. So we took that home and thought, wow, that time to market there is incredibly long. So how do we shorten that? So we worked with some really nice some great designers in our organization, and we've come up with this way that hopefully, we can reduce the time that it takes you to create beautiful and creative content with that thing. So I guess my one big ask for you at this conference is, I talked to hundreds of people yet, well, not hundreds, maybe dozens of people yesterday, but not all of you. Please don't be shy. Don't be shy today. Find someone with an Esri badge. Let us know what your challenges are. What are your existing pain points? How are you having difficulty with the software? Because that really helps us. So with that in mind, I'm going to switch. I'm going to do a very quick demo now. Okay, perfect. So what you're looking at here is a web map of, these are 8 actual oil change facilities in the San Diego market. This is fictional data. And let's imagine that someone's out in the field and they've actually used our collector application to go out in the field and gather some site characteristics for these locations. So you can see here that we do have some information about the actual sales of the facilities and such, but we've also got the size of the facility, what the rent is, and then some, someone maybe out there with the clicker counting traffic, or it's coming from another vendor. So let's imagine in this scenario that this particular oil vendor wants to test out some new promotional campaign in their market, and they want to select 2 or 3 locations, and they don't know how to select the 2 or 3 locations. So one of the things that you would do here is that you could look at the sales of the location, but in this case, all 8 locations ended up with relatively equal sales. So then you could look at, maybe you'll do a drive time buffer around these, and we looked at the population of them, and again, they're very similar. So there must be some other way to rank these types of locations. So at the Business Analyst 10.5 release, yet again, I'm going to show you stuff that you can't have now. I apologize. So this is another piece of technology that we're working on that will be released at the end of the year. And basically what it is it allows you to do a kind of weighted overlay or a site suitability analysis. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up the Business Analyst web application, and we're going to load in those points. So it's kind of cool already, right? We've taken something that was collected using the collector application. It's a web map, and now because Business Analyst is just a piece of the ArcGIS ecosystem, it all works well together. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up this new workflow called site suitability. And what it will allow us to do is do our analysis on points on the map, but you could also be doing a kind of a greenfield analysis. So imagine that there would be census tracts in this market, and you wanted to rank and score the census tracts based on criteria. You could do that as well. But we'll start with the points on the map, and we'll just, I think just to make things a little bit easier, we're just going to do a simple ring buffer around each of these locations, but we could be doing more complex analysis by using things like drive time buffers around the points. So it's gone and created the 2-mile buffers for each of the locations, and then I go next. So this is probably the most important screen here, and this is where we actually get to take the or assign how we want to assign the criteria for these points. So we could start by working with Esri's Living Atlas of Demographic Data. So I could you know, find out how many people live in the particular area, so we'll select population. We could go into the spending data, and I'll do a search for vehicle data here. And then we could actually look at the total dollars spent on vehicle maintenance and repairs inside the area. And then when I hit the apply now, what it's going to do is it's going to use going to go to the Business Analyst web server, going to come back, and then it's actually already created that data for us. So we could run our analysis now, and you've seen many demos, probably inside Business Analyst or Esri, where you're using just Esri-based data. So this is what's kind of cool. Not only can you add the Business Analyst data, but you could actually add your own attributes to the analysis as well, too. So in this case, I'll select the size of the facility, and then, you know, maybe the traffic count as well, too. So at this point in time, I could now what it would do is that we could run the analysis, and it would be like the smart map search that you've seen before, query, and we could actually rank the facilities. But there's one other thing that you can do here, and that's where you could actually weight how important the factors are to you. So, you know, for example, we could say that you know, it's really important that the total dollars spent on vehicle repairs are high, as well as the amount of drive-through traffic we get in the area. And then when we run the analysis, it's run really quick because we've already calculated that data. And now what we've got here is, if I sort this descending, we can see here that this Genesee location is ranked the highest of the 8 locations. So how do we achieve this score? Basically what we've done here is run kind of like an analog model, where we took the rank order for each one of the characteristics and summed it together. We apply the weight at each one of those things, and we come up with that kind of weight. So if we look here, what's I think really interesting about this Genesee location is that the number of people that live within 2 miles of that facility is actually kind of in a median case. It's right around average for the area. But if you look at some of the other criteria, like the size of the facility and how much traffic it's getting a little higher. So it's a really kind of an interesting workflow where you'll be able to run this type of suitability analysis that you're working with. Great. If we could go back to the slides now. So right, I'd just like to finish with just one slide here, and that is that, you know, I wanted to emphasize again, you've seen a lot of people up here talking about Business Analyst, and some demos as well too. And just to emphasize again that Business Analyst really is just an implementation of ArcGIS. It has a mobile application, it has its own web application, and, you know, it has a rich, powerful desktop. But it works with the rest of the ecosystem as well too. So it works with Collector, the output that, for example, of those great new graphic reports that we're working with will be able to be ingested and put into a story map. And that's what we're working on. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Garry.
Yeah.
Now I already know the first question. When do we think we're going to have access to this?
Yeah, so both the graphic reports that I showed yesterday and the new site suitability workflow, you know, you could probably see on that last screen that the UX is a little bit green, so we want to make that look a little bit more visually engaging. Ding Wan is the developer of that tool. She's back there, and if you have any feedback, I'd love to pair you up with her.
Great.
Yeah. So so we're looking at probably timing that with the platform and the ArcGIS update at 10.5. So that's, you know, October, November of 2016.
Great.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you know, and just compliments to you guys. We've really brought that product a long way in the last year, and congratulations. Well done.
All right. Thank you.